Alright, here's where we are right now. So, I started boxing in the plates. I have all this welded in. I cut around for the tank. I put the cinder, the pump, and the fill in the tank. I need to do a couple little mount brackets and finish welding up that area right there. I need to finish stitch welding the boxing plates up and then paint that. The rear end is done. Got the Willwood brakes on. So those are all on. I've got everything torqued down. I need to fill that with lube, and the rear end is complete. So that's done. I have been busy on the engine or transmission, so I changed from rear shift to mid shift on the transmission. I put the clutch in. That's a Zoom Kevlar. I torqued down the motor mounts. And what else? Oh, I made the bolts for the bell housing. Torqued those down. I set the hydraulic throwout bearing. I don't know if you can see in there or not. So that's done. Put the wiring harness on. Those are reverse lights. I ordered the harness for the speed sensor. So once that's in, I'll make up a harness for the transmission, and that'll be done. So this is a Silver Sports transmission. Mid shift, it is very short throw. It's about half the length of the one I had before, which I think was a Pro 5.0. So yeah, so anyway, so that's done. What else? So I have a few other things that I've been working on. I've got the mounts for the seats. I've got all the braided line and everything to do up the filter and run all the hard lines up to the front. Got a box of fittings and everything, so all this is the fittings and everything to finish up that. So I ordered the gas pedal. Already had the brake and the clutch pedal assembly, so that'll all get put in down there. Once that's done, I filled up the trans with the Pennzoil Synchro mesh. Trying to think what else. So the Silver Sports kit removes the the neutral safety switch, which really isn't needed in a manual transmission. It took about 2.5 quarts. So what else? I've been working on some other little odds and ends here and there. Like I showed before, the seats in. I'll have the transmission will shift right about there, so that's going to be moved forwards quite a bit. And I set up on the rear end, I set up the anti-roll bar. So the shocks have been set, the anti-roll bars have been set, the ladder bars have been set. So once I finish the boxing and grind and paint that, that'll be set. Everything will be done in the back and be ready for paint. So yeah, so I've got to make up the harness for the back. The transmission harness should be fairly easy. I have 2 wires for the reverse lights, 2 wires for the speed sensor. That should be it. For the back here, we're going to have 2 wires for the pump, 2 wires for the cinder, and I think that should about do it. There's a couple other options that I could do for the rear. like boost to pump type setup. I have another pump that can add to this one. This is a 400 liters per hour pump, which should be good for about 800 horsepower. I have the pump, the secondary pump I have, which is this one right here, is a welding, and that's good for about 1200 horsepower. So if I can get enough flow through the 6AN, which this is quarter NPT coming out of here to 6AN to there. If I can get enough flow out of that 6AN, it should be good for the 1000 horsepower. I don't foresee too much of a problem from the output of the fuel pump, or I'm sorry, the fuel filter. It's going to be 8AN, and that's going to run solid line aluminum tubing all the way up to the front. So I think that should work pretty good. So I guess the next thing I'm working on is once I get the engine ready, like permanently ready to fire, because I got an air cleaner and everything on order that I'm waiting on. The next thing is battery box. So I've got to finish the mount for the gas tank and then the battery box and get the rear end back in. And once that's done, this transmission, this thing will be drivable. I think I've just about got everything. This rear end is a This rear end is a Curry 9-inch, 60-inch. It's their hot rod with the 31 spline, 9+ axles. It's got a 350 with a locker in it. It's an iron third member. I need to work on figuring out drive shaft length. I believe that's a 1310 U-joint on there. That is a Turbo 400 input shaft, or not input shaft, whatever, yoke. And I believe that's also 1310. So I need to figure out what I'm going to do for a drive shaft and just assume that both ends will be 1310. So I need to redo the output of the fuel rails to make them a little tighter because I don't have a ton of room on the firewall, so that's not a big deal. I have just about everything for the front drive accessory. So I've got the alternator, the power steering, the water pump, all that's going to be done. I ordered and received the harness for the alternator, so it's going to get the harness plus a 1-wire for the power out. I need to tighten down the water pump and then finish making the spacers for the accessories. For the clutch lines, I have one going to that's going to need to go to the clutch pedal. The other one's going to be a bleeder. I've got the starter in. I need to bolt that down and make the line or the cables for it. And other than that, that's about what I'm working on right now. So it's been keeping me busy, and hopefully in a couple of weeks have it somewhat drivable, at least in the neighborhood. Thanks.